The Tiara Club at Emerald Castle. Princess Ruby and the Enchanted Whale. Vivian French. Chapter 1. La 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 lah. La 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 lah. La 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 lah. I could see Queen Mother Matilda was turning purple, but what could I do? Princess Ruby, she snapped. You are not trying. Take 3 minus Tiara points, and make sure you do better next lesson. Then she gathered up her music sheets and swept away from the piano and out of the music room. I sighed, and Millie patted my shoulder. Never mind, Ruby, she said. I think you've got a lovely voice. It's just different. Diamond was standing beside me, and she nudged her twin sister. Perfect princesses always sing in tune, don't they, Gruella? That's what Mummy says, Gruella agreed. So anyone who doesn't sing in tune can't ever be a perfect princess. Diamond said smugly, and she gave me such a superior look. Amelia made a face as the twins skipped out of the music room hand in hand. Why do they always have to be so horrid? She asked. Zoe looked wise. I think it's their mother's fault, she said. My dad met her once, and she never stopped talking about the twins and how totally perfect they were. He said he actually felt sorry for them because he could tell they were completely spoiled. That's right, Leah nodded, and because there are 2 of them they can stick together, and they don't mind what anyone else thinks. Rachel sighed. It's still very annoying, though. Just take no notice of them, said Millie. Then she grinned such a wicked grin. A perfect princess will always ignore beetles, spiders, and annoying twins. That made us all giggle, because Millie sounded so like our head teacher, Queen Gwendolyn, and I began to feel a bit better, but I still had tomorrow to worry about. How can I get better at singing? I asked Rachel as we walked along the corridor to the recreation room. I don't want any more minus Tiara points. I've got far too many already. I'm really scared I won't win my emerald sash at the end of term. Rachel rubbed her nose thoughtfully, and then, as we passed an open door, she grabbed my arm. Look! Fairy G's in her room, and the door's open. Go and ask her. If anyone can help, she will. After all, she is the school fairy godmother. That's a really good idea, I said, and I tapped politely on the door before going in. Fairy G is one of my most favorite teachers. She's almost always cheerful, and she has the biggest booming voice you've ever heard. And she wears the most unfairy-like boots, and stomps about Emerald Castle making sure that everything's in order, but when I went into her room she was sitting at her desk with her head in her hands. Fairy G, I said in surprise. Are you all right? She looked up, and there were tears in her eyes. No, Ruby my dear, I'm not. She heaved a huge sigh, and waved me towards a chair. Every year something very wonderful happens here at Emerald Castle, something very special. A group of gray whales swim past on their way to the feeding grounds in the northern seas, and Old Gray, the oldest of them all, sings to us as she passes by. My great-grandmother made friends with her a long, long time ago, and she's sung every year since then. She brings a very special magic to Emerald Castle and all our students. But although we know the whales have come this year, because the fishermen have seen them, Old Gray isn't with them. Oh, I'm so sorry, I said, and I was. I felt really sorry for Fairy G, and I tried to think of something helpful to say. Could she have got held up somehow, and be behind the others, do you think? Fairy G shook her head. She's always one of the first, but I suppose she could be getting slow. She must be very old now. And then our fairy godmother suddenly sat up straight, and her eyes began to shine. Thank you, Ruby. You could be right, she might have been held up. And I've made a decision. I'm going to ask Queen Gwendolyn if we can borrow the royal yacht and see for ourselves. We'll go tomorrow, and look for Old Gray. Chapter 2. We were all so excited when we heard that Queen Gwendolyn had said we could go out on her yacht to look for the whales. Even the twins looked thrilled. The royal yacht has the most terribly handsome sailors, Diamond said, her eyes sparkling. And Mummy says they're all princes, doesn't she, Gruella? Gruella nodded. They drive the yacht as well, Mummy says. Silly! Diamond began to snigger. The princes don't drive boats, Gruella. They steer them. Everybody knows that. Gruella looked cross. Well, I didn't, so there. Diamond stopped sniggering and looked thoughtful. Of course, we'll have to wear our very best dresses. What are you going to wear, Ruby? Me? I was surprised she'd asked me. I'm not sure. Fairy G wants us to wear our sailor uniforms, Zoe chipped in. I saw her pinning a notice on the board, and I stopped to read it. It said, all princesses will be expected to wear sailor dresses and sensible shoes. I saw Diamond and Gruella look at each other, and it was so obvious they thought that was the worst idea ever. All they said, though, was really, and then they hurried away. Millie smiled. I wonder what they'll wear. We'll find out tomorrow, Leah said. I bet it's something totally ridiculous. Leah was right. When we came down to breakfast the next day, the twins were wearing sailor dresses, but they were so different from ours. They were made of satin with really long skirts, and looked like ball gowns. Diamond looked at our uniforms, and turned up her nose. You do look plain, she said. Don't you think you should make some sort of an effort? What will the princes think? They'll think our princesses are extremely sensible, Fairy G announced, as she stamped up to where we were sitting. Diamond and Gruella, please go upstairs and change. Diamond stuck out her lower lip. But these are our sailor dresses, Fairy G. We haven't got anything else. Fairy G put her hands on her hips. Very well, Diamond. You and Gruella may wear those ridiculous outfits, but don't blame me if they get spoiled. Now, I want everyone outside in exactly 10 minutes, and we'll walk down to the landing stage. Diamond's mouth opened, and I just knew she was going to say, perfect princesses never walk, but then she saw Fairy G's expression, and changed her mind. Instead, she made a big fuss of arranging her skirts as she got up from the table. Come along, Gruella, she said in her bossiest voice. At least 2 of us will look like perfect princesses when we reach the royal yacht. Chapter 3. The royal yacht was just wonderful. It was painted a fabulous royal blue on the outside, but inside everything was either a lovely golden wood, or crisp white, like the sails. As we walked up the gangway behind Fairy G, the captain came forward to greet us, and a row of smart-looking sailors saluted. A very small sailor handed us each a life jacket as we stepped on board, and we thanked him politely, all except for the twins. I can't wear this. Diamond stepped backwards in horror. It's hideous. It'll ruin our dresses. Gruella agreed. Fairy G frowned. If you don't wear life jackets, you can't come on board. The twins looked at each other, and then, very unwillingly, did as they were told. That's better, Fairy G said, and turned to the captain. Good morning, King Jonathan. May I present the princesses from Emerald Castle? I'm sure Queen Gwendolyn has told you why we're here. King Jonathan nodded. We spotted a group of whales only yesterday, he said, but I understand you're looking for one whale in particular? That's right, Fairy G gave a tiny sigh. Old Gray. The king's face lit up. Old Gray? But she's been coming this way for years. She always sings as she passes Emerald Castle, and it's really beautiful. But she hasn't been heard this year, Fairy G told him, and I'm worried about her. We'll find her, King Jonathan said firmly. They'll send a couple of lads up to the crow's nest, and they can keep a lookout. He blew sharply on a silver whistle, and 2 sailors came running towards us. Prince Fritz and Prince Malcolm, collect a couple of telescopes, and take your positions in the crow's nest. You're looking out for either a group of gray whales, or a whale on her own. Shout down as soon as you see anything. Aye, aye, Captain. The princes saluted the king, and dashed away. A few moments later we saw them positively zooming up a rope ladder, and the next minute they were in the crow's nest at the very top of the mast. Right. King Jonathan blew on his whistle again, and at once all the sailor princes leapt into action. They hauled up the anchor and heaved in the mooring ropes, and as Fairy G shepherded us out of the way we could see the heavy mainsail beginning to fill and billow out like a huge white cloud. A moment later we were moving, faster and faster. Doesn't it feel wonderful? Millie said, as the yacht leant into the wind and fairly flew over the waves. It's utterly gorgeous. Amelia's cheeks were very pink. I've never been on a sailing boat before. Fairy G smiled. All we need now is to find the whales, and it'll be a perfect day out. Won't they be scared of us? Rachel asked. One of the sailors heard her, and he stopped beside us. A sailing ship is the best way to see whales, he explained. Motor boats leave pollution in the water, and the sound of the engine can disturb the whale's sense of direction. Thank you, Rachel said shyly, but Diamond elbowed her out of the way. I feel sick, she announced, but before anyone could answer there was a loud shout from above. The little sailor who'd given us our life jackets came running towards us. If you please, your majesties, he gasped, the whales are on the starboard bow. As he turned and dashed away again, Fairy G jumped to her feet. Goodness! I never thought we'd find them so soon. Come along, come and see your first ever gray whales. She hurried to the right-hand side of the boat and leant over the rail. Quickly, she called. Come and see. Chapter 4. Have you ever seen a real live gray whale? I never had, and I had no idea just how absolutely vast they are. Vast, and somehow terribly dignified and special. Even though we weren't far away, they took no notice of us, but moved steadily on and on through the blue-green water. I stared and stared and stared, and I couldn't say a word. Is Old Gray with them? Zoe asked Fairy G, will she sing for us now? Fairy G was squinting into the sunshine. I can't see her, she said. It's easy to spot her. She's got a crown of barnacles on her head. She looks almost as if she's wearing a tiara. King Jonathan came striding across the deck to join us. Splendid, aren't they? He smiled as he watched one of the whales dive deep into the sea and then rise up again to blow a spout of water high up into the air. The water drops glittered and shone, and I couldn't help taking a deep breath. It was so beautiful. Could we sail back the way they've come? Fairy G asked hopefully. Just in case Old Gray is following on behind them? I have a different idea. King Jonathan blew on his whistle, and there was another flurry of activity. We watched in amazement as the sails were lowered and tidied away, and the anchor was rattled overboard with a massive splash. It all happened so fast that it seemed no time at all before the royal yacht was rocking peacefully on the waves. If we wait here, King Jonathan told us, we can all watch for Old Gray. She'll follow the same sea path as the rest of her family, so we're unlikely to miss her. And while we're waiting, perhaps the princesses would like to take turns keeping a lookout. I looked up at the crow's nest on the top of the mast, and my stomach did 50 somersaults. I am so not good at heights. But the king saw me going pale, and he laughed. I wasn't suggesting you climbed up there, my dear, he said. There's an excellent lookout position on the bows. And he pointed to the front of the yacht. Oh, I said, and I blushed. Yes, I'd love to help look. Diamond grabbed Gruella, and they both made the king a deep curtsy. "Perhaps my sister and I could help Ruby?" she asked. "Mummy says we have such sharp eyes." I'd been hoping Amelia, Leah, and the rest of Daffodil Room would be able to come with me, but King Jonathan nodded at the twins. "Of course you can," he said, and he turned to a tall sailor who was standing nearby. "Prince Laszlo, would you escort these princesses to the bows? And make sure they're comfortable." Diamond gave Prince Laszlo what she obviously thought was a dazzling smile, and I suddenly realized why she'd wanted to come with me. There were sailor princes sitting and standing all along the deck, and she and Gruella paraded all the way to the bows, simpering and curtsying and swishing their long dresses as they went. One or two of the sailors stood to attention and bowed back, but most of them just looked surprised. Thank you all," Diamond called, and flung herself into one of the chairs that the littlest sailor had rushed to put in place. At exactly the same time, Gruella gave her most gracious smile and a wave, and sank into the chair from the other side. And there were the two of them squashed in together. Chapter 5. Diamond stopped simpering and looked furious. "Get off me," she hissed at Gruella, but Gruella couldn't move. "You get off," she snapped, but Diamond was just as stuck. I caught the eye of the littlest sailor, and I knew he was trying his very best not to laugh. His face was scarlet. The other sailors weren't so polite, however. A few turned away, but most of them absolutely roared until tears rolled down their cheeks. And do you know what? I actually felt sorry for Diamond and Gruella. They looked so silly, and there was nothing they could do about it. I stepped forward and took Diamond's hands and pulled and pulled. And the littlest sailor jumped forward and held the back of the chair, and suddenly, thump! Diamond landed on the deck in the most undignified flurry of skirts and petticoats, leaving a pink and flustered Gruella in the chair. Diamond tried to get to her feet, but she kept stepping on her long dress, and I had to help her up. Her face was even redder than the littlest sailor's, and I knew she was trying not to cry, and then she absolutely glared at me. "It's all your fault," she shouted, and she gave me a massive push. I stepped back, staggered, and slipped, and as Diamond and Gruella screamed, I slid across the deck. If I hadn't grabbed at the rail, I would have fallen overboard. As it was, I ended up staring down into the water. And an eye stared back at me. "What?" I gasped. And then I realized it was a whale. Not a vast, enormous one, but a baby whale, not much longer than 4 or 5 meters. I carefully stood up, and there was Fairy G right behind me. "Did you see?" I whispered, and she nodded. "So that's why Old Grey was late this year." Fairy G sounded so happy I couldn't help smiling too. "And look, there she is!" We all turned, and Fairy G was right. Not far away was the most extraordinarily large whale, and as we gazed at her, she blew a spout of water way up into the air. Then she dived, and the waves creamed and curled about her. A moment later she appeared again, and this time the little one was next to her, close to her side. 2 spouts soared into the air, and a rainbow of sparkling water drops surrounded Old Grey and her baby. And then Old Grey began to sing. What did it sound like? I really can't describe it, except to say it was beautiful. It wasn't like human singing, it was more as if a mountain or the sea itself were singing. It made tingles go up and down my spine, and I wanted to laugh and cry all at the same time. Every single person on the royal yacht stood completely still, hardly breathing, until gradually the song faded away, and we realized that Old Grey and her baby had gone. Wow, Zoe said. That's made me feel, I don't know, all peaceful and lovely inside. Me too, Millie agreed, and Leah nodded, a dreamy look on her face. Amelia sighed happily. It was, I can't think of the word. Magical, Rachel said, and we all nodded. A second later something else magical happened. Diamond and Gruella walked up to me, looking very shamefaced. Gruella said, "Sorry, Ruby. Thank you for helping us." And then Diamond shuffled her feet and gave me a sideways look. "I was really mean," she said. "I'm sorry, Ruby. I really truly am." Chapter 6. I don't know what Fairy G would have done if the twins hadn't apologized, but as it was she looked amazingly cheerful. "Time to go back to Emerald Castle," she announced. King Jonathan picked up his silver whistle and then paused. "I think we've all been very honored," he said, "and I think we should celebrate." "Fairy G, have you got your wand with you?" Fairy G smiled. "Of course." "In that case," King Jonathan said, "we should have a party, a celebration. I happen to know that some of my lads can play a very jolly tune, and the cooks have already prepared a splendid meal, so what do you think?" In answer, Fairy G waved her wand, and immediately the royal yacht was hung with bunches of blue and silver ribbon, while tiny silver bells tinkled from every rope. Blue and silver cushions were scattered over the deck, and as the cooks arrived carrying plates and plates of the most delicious food, tables sprang up from nowhere. "We'll eat first, and dance afterwards," King Jonathan declared. And that's what we did, all except for Diamond and Gruella. They went down to the cabin, and said they didn't want to dance. "Shall I go and see if they're all right?" I asked Fairy G, but she shook her head. "It won't hurt them to have a little think about the way they behave," she said, but she didn't sound cross, just thoughtful. Zoe touched Fairy G's arm. "Was it the whale song that made them change?" "I think it might have been." Fairy G smiled down at us. "Enchantment is a very strange thing. Now, off you go." I can hear someone beginning to play a conga. After the dancing, which was such fun, we sat down on the cushions, and Prince Fritz played the accordion as we sang sea shanties. And King Jonathan actually said he liked my singing. When we were finally back at Emerald Castle and trailing up the stairs to Daffodil Room, I found myself humming one of the songs. "Do you know what?" Amelia said. "I think you're much more in tune now, Ruby." Leah giggled. "Maybe it was hearing Old Grey. I thought they were just being kind, because they were my friends. But guess what happened? The next day we had another singing lesson, and Queen Mother Matilda said I was much improved. I think the effect of the enchanted whale song must have worn off, because Diamond and Gruella snorted rudely. But I didn't mind. I've got lots of other wonderful friends, and you're one of the best."